One of the most intriguing discoveries in modern science is the fact that there is nothing in this world that even approaches what might be called truly solid. We speak of solids, liquids, and gases, but these terms describe superficial rather than basic properties of matter. All matter, regardless of its state, is composed of invisible particles called atoms, which in turn are composed of other particles. The air we breathe, though invisible to us, is just as real as wood or metal, because it's made of the same fundamental particles. It is the arrangement of these particles and the forces that bind them together that give to a substance its special properties.
Here's what Max Planck had to say. As he accepted the Nobel Prize, these were his words. As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you, as the result of my research about atoms, this much. There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together.
The Force?
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us.
Atoms are not solid. Instead, they are tiny solar systems composed of infinitely small particles revolving at tremendous speeds and bound together by enormous forces. And like our solar system, atoms are almost entirely empty space.
We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter.
The Matrix?
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
The measurement problem is this. An atom only appears in a particular place if you measure it. In other words, an atom is spread out all over the place until a conscious observer decides to look at it. So the act of measurement or observation creates the entire universe.
Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves.
Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
Always remember, your focus determines your reality.
It is within the realm of scientific possibility that there could be two worlds coexistent, occupying the same part of space at the same moment of time, each world just as real as the other, and that one world could pass freely through the other world, neither world being conscious of the existence of the other world, if you grant just one thing. Atomic forces within the material substance of these two worlds that are not mutually interactive.
Can you see it? It's right here in front of me, right now. Watch. No. Good heavens. You know, it went through me. It passed right through me.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
Oh, it's a dream. It's a dream. How do you not know that knocking on things isn't a fucking dream?
Typically, we hear that this sort of stuff is no longer solid. It's mostly a vacuum in quantum physics.
Not only is it not solid, it's mostly empty space, but it's also probabilities, just fuzzy, not even totally real.
We think of a piece of steel as being solid, and according to our definition, it is a solid. But the popular concept of what makes a solid is certainly a false one. This piece of steel, and any so-called solid substance on this earth, is almost entirely empty space.
And that's one of the connections with consciousness, that the solidity of matter is dissolving away in the light of these theories and becoming more and more like the fuzziness that's inside our heads.
This can't
be. Be what? Be real?
And I looked down at my arm, and I realized that I can no longer define the boundaries of my body. I can't define where I begin and where I end, because the atoms and the molecules of my arm blended with the atoms and molecules of the wall. And all I could detect was this energy.
The young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. How about a positive LSD story? Wouldn't that be newsworthy just once, to base your decision on information rather than scare tactics and superstitions and lies? Just once.
Well, tell me. Well, I just couldn't. I couldn't possibly tell you. It's here. Can't you feel it? This whole room, everything is in color, and I can feel the air. I can see it. I can see all the molecules. I'm part of it. Can't you see it?
I'm trying.
Oh, it's just like you're released, or you're free, or...
I used to take drugs and I quit, but I'll tell you something. I have nothing against drugs whatsoever. That's kind of weird, huh? You've never heard that one? Used to take drugs, quit, and have nothing against them. Wow, never heard that. Let's hear more. Okay.
I used to live in a room full of mirrors. All I could see was me. And I took my spirit and I smashed my mirror. And now the whole world is here for me to see. Now the whole world is here for me to see.
The psychedelic experience is as central to understanding your humanness as having sex, or having a child, or having responsibilities, or having hopes and dreams, and yet it is illegal. We are somehow told we are infantilized. We're told, you can wander around within the sanctioned playpen of ordinary consciousness, and we have some intoxicants over here if you want to mess yourself up. We've got some scotch here and some tobacco and red meat and some sugar and a little TV and so forth and so on. But these boundary-dissolving hallucinogens that give you a sense of unity with your fellow man and nature are somehow forbidden. This is an outrage. It's a sign of cultural immaturity, and the fact that we tolerate it is a sign that we are living in a society as oppressed as any society in the past.
war on consciousness in our society, and if we as adults are not allowed to make sovereign decisions about what to experience with our own consciousness while doing no harm to others, including the decision to use responsibly ancient and sacred visionary plants, then we cannot claim to be free in any way, and it's useless for our society to go around the world imposing our form of democracy on others while we nourish this rot at the heart of society and we do not allow individual freedom over consciousness. It may even be that we're denying ourselves the next vital step in our own evolution by allowing this state of affairs to continue, and who knows, perhaps our immortal destiny as well.
What happens when you take them? Well, your mind completely opens up to the true nature of our existence, which is that we are not bodies, that we are pure, loving spirit created by God, that God is love, and there is nothing but love, and love, being all-encompassing, has no opposite. You are completely forgiven on all things. There's nothing you've ever done that has ever swayed God's pure and unconditional love for you, and you realize that eternity and peace and heaven is our inheritance, and all of us are going to make it there.
And when it started, this voice started talking to me, it opened up by saying, there's only one thing you really need to know. Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. And in my mind, I went to say everything, and I got halfway through, it said, everything else is illusion. Because what it was saying was, the only truth is the existence of this infinite one consciousness, which is all-loving, all-knowing, all-wise, the harmonious amalgamation of all.
But let me tell you something, I'm glad that drug's against the law, and it's a first-class felony, and I'm glad. You know why? You know what happened to me when I took them? I laid in a field of green grass for 4 hours, going, my God, I love everything. There is nothing but love. The heavens opened, and God rained down gifts of forgiveness for past misperceptions I've had, and I was healed totally, personally, spiritually, and physically in all ways. Now, if that isn't a hazard to this fucking country, I should have been home watching Full House, getting the moral lesson, and drinking beer and watching my ass get as fat as the love seat I was sitting on.
This is what governments are afraid of. They are afraid of a citizenry that is fully conscious. They actually want us to be unconscious. They want us to simply focus on this alert, problem-solving, competitive mentality that makes us good consumers and good competitors in the business place. But they don't want us to explore the majestic and amazing depths of our consciousness, because then we just might start asking questions that would be very uncomfortable for the powers that be.
I'll tell you something else. I know this is not a very popular idea. You don't hear it very often anymore, but it's the truth. I have taken drugs before, and I had a real good time. Sorry. Didn't murder anybody, didn't rob anybody, didn't rape anybody, didn't beat anybody, didn't lose one fucking job, laughed my ass off, and went about my day.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
I find that commercial a tad insulting to my intelligence. You know the one, here's your brain. I've seen a lot of things on drugs, but I have never, ever, ever looked at an egg and thought it was a fucking brain, not once. I have seen UFOs split the sky like a sheet, but I have never looked at an egg and thought it was a fucking brain, not once. I have had 7 balls of light come off of a UFO, lead me onto their ship, explain to me telepathically that we are all one and there's no such thing as death.
I remembered
walking down this tunnel of light and feeling like Bill and I were walking into a spaceship. Bill was just asking, who are you and why are you here? And just basically being told that the boundaries of space and time are all in our minds, and that we all are one and everything is one. We all are one and everything is one. We all are one.
How do you feel inside?
Inside? I don't have any inside.
Is it all one?
The term that I keep hearing is quantum interconnectedness, and the notion that separability doesn't exist, that somehow all is one, the way the mystics used to say
Yes.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a peculiar feature in quantum theory called quantum interconnectedness, and it was discovered right when quantum theory was discovered. It was found that in the quantum description of two objects, when two objects briefly interact and then you pull them apart, in the description at least, they never come apart. There's a kind of stickiness that connects them together, so they're bound together forever in the theory. They never separate, even though they're not interacting anymore.
Yes, everything is one.
In my mind's eye, I felt myself instinctively taking on the posture of prayer in my head. I was on my knees, hands clasped in front of me, and I bowed to this force. I wasn't scared or threatened in any way. It was more about reverence. I was showing my respect. I was humbled and honored to be in this presence. The presence was a feeling, not something I saw or heard. I only felt it, but it felt more real than any reality I had ever experienced. And it was a familiar place, too. It was when I surrendered to this that I felt like I let go. I was gone, or should I say, this earthly part of me was. It was still on the couch in some sort of suspended animation awaiting my return. I was in the void. This void had a strange and indescribable quality to it, that there was nothing to it but this feeling of unconditional and undying love. It felt like my soul was basking in the feeling of this space. I have no idea how long it lasted. Time and space did not exist there, and there was no way of tracking it. I would have thought that the music might remind me of the time, but at the point I felt like I was the music, or the music was me, or maybe that it was all different manifestations of this love feeling I found myself wrapped in.
And then, after about 40 minutes, there's something coursing through every cell in my body, like an intelligence searching everything. And I am wired to the entire cosmos. I look at the ground and I see a crack in the ground, and then inside that crack there's a little flower growing, and it's my brother. Everything. And I realize for the first time this is the only genuine religious experience I've ever had. It is communion, this direct access to the Godhead, whatever you think that is. I have no idea what it is, but there's definitely an intelligence, a higher intelligence at work in you during this experience.
I can see everything in color. Everything. You have to see the air. You can't believe it. And the dimensions and all the prisms and the rays.
I had an experience. I can't prove it. I can't even explain it. But everything that I know as a human being, everything that I am tells me that it was real. I was given something wonderful, something that changed me forever. A vision of the universe that tells us undeniably how tiny and insignificant and how rare and precious we all are. A vision that tells us that we belong to something that is greater than ourselves, that we are not, that none of us are alone. I wish I could share that. I wish that everyone, if even for one moment, could feel that awe and humility and hope.
I can't tell you about it. If you can't see it, then you'll just never know it. I feel sorry for you.
And it's the heart of it that is so hard to talk about. I mean, I skim the ideas off the depth of a sea of heart whose boundaries cannot be taken, because that's my style. But the unsaid part, the dizziness of the things unsaid. Remember the poem by Trumbull Stickney? I lean over your meaning's edge, and I feel the dizziness of the things you have not said. And the dizziness of the things unsaid, for us fans of dizziness, is ecstasy, the vertigo. Weren't we first spun in the schoolyard? Wasn't that your first altered state of consciousness? To be spun and spun until you fall down and watch the world move around? It's the dizziness of the things unsaid. That's a real problem for me. I'm a sayer. But it's worth invoking it, if only to let it resonate in the silence.
I wish I could talk in Technicolor.